Ahoy there, Captain Benzie here, coming at you with another episode of the Frigate Pilot's Manifesto, the series that aims to teach you everything you need to know about the different frigates of Eve Echoes. In today's video I thought it'd be fun to have a little look at the Tormentor. This is the Tech 2 Amarr frigate, one of the earliest frigates that Amarr pilots will actually be able to access. And I know what you're thinking, why on earth are we looking at a Tech 2 ship when loads of people are requesting things like the big battle cruisers, the faction battleships and all that kind of thing for me to talk about in videos. But hey, sometimes I've just got to do something that I personally find a little bit fun, you know? So I thought this would be a bit of an interesting one to talk about. So what we're going to do is we're going to have a look at the Tormentor. We're going to talk a little bit about its background, we're going to talk about its attributes and fittings, that kind of thing. We're then going to fit it and actually take it out into combat and showcase why this is actually a surprisingly fun little frigate. Now, if you do enjoy this video, let me know by hitting like on it, sub to the channel for all things Eve Echoes, ding that notification bell so that you never miss an upload, and of course, let me know in the comment section down below what ships, what topics you want me to cover in future. If you do want to go the extra mile to help support this channel, we do have a Patreon page, and there is a merchandise store on Redbubble. So if you've ever fancied representing this channel or the Catskull Academy, then do head over there and take a look at all that cool loot. Anyway, that said and done then, let's jump right into talking about the Amarr Tormentor. The Tormentor is an Amarr Empire Tech 2 frigate, and being a Tech 2 frigate means it's readily available for purchase at every ITC in the game. I think it costs about 5,000 ISK, it's seeded by the game itself, not by other players, so it is dirt cheap, readily available there for any capsuleer, whether you've just started playing or whether you've been around for a while and want to give this a try. Now, whilst it makes an excellent starting ship, I would argue it's actually really useful at higher levels as well, as we're going to talk about in this video. Now, the Tormentor itself also has a really interesting storied history to it. It is the oldest frigate type still in Imperial Navy service. The original designs are over 140 years old, and it's barely been changed since its incept date. I suppose if it ain't broke, don't fix it. The hull itself is also small enough to be technically classified as a corvette. As far as the game's concerned, the Tormentor is definitely a frigate and it gets bonuses from all the different frigate skills, etc. But by its size and classification, according to Concord, this should technically be classified as a corvette. Now, talking about the hull as well, that iconic curved hull was originally designed to keep the radar sensor cluster and astrometric suite as far away as possible from the vessel's lightly shielded faster than light array. This is after several catastrophic subsystems issues and failed flight tests. The Minmatar also have an unusual name for the Tormentor. It's referred to often by the Republic fleet as Sulcata, in reference to a hard-shelled, docile, waterborne reptile native to Matar. Anyway, enough of its history then, let's have a look at its attributes and fittings. So the Tormentor itself, it's got a power grid here of 45 megawatts. That is pretty sizable for a frigate of this size. Certainly most of the other frigates are around the 28 to 35 megawatt mark. So the Tormentor coming in at 45 means we get a lot of options here of what we can put into its power grid. But in fairness, when you're using a ship of this size with only 2 high slots and 3 low slots, you're kind of limited in your options basically. It doesn't matter how big the power grid is, the fittings are what are going to limit you here. Now, you'll notice that there are no mid-slots. This means we cannot put tackle on there, we can't put capacitor warfare, none of that kind of fun stuff there. It is straight up high slots for turrets, and low slots there for things like tank and propulsion, which we'll have a look at in the fittings section. Its cargo hold is 260 cubic meters, that's fairly sizable for a starting frigate, and it's useful because it means that you can clear a combat encounter, still have enough space in your cargo hold to loot everything, and you can actually be running a couple of those sort of delivery encounters as well early on in the game, making it excellent for ISK running early on. Defensively speaking though, 1,278. The Tormentor is of course a Tech 2 frigate. It is a small, very fragile ship, and there are plenty of guns in the game that can quite happily one-shot a Tormentor if they get a clear shot at it. As it's an Amarr ship, most of its HP there is in its armour tank, 406, a good amount in structure of 331, shields tend to be its weakest part at 275. Its capacitor bank is very aggressive as well, 415 gigajoules with a good capacitor recharge rate of 6.03. Now, you'll notice that even with the ship, if it's not capacitor stable, the capacitor recharges very, very quickly. That gives us the opportunity to use a lot of very powerful modules there, including, of course, Amarr lasers, which can be very capacitor hungry. You'd expect an Amarr ship, I suppose, to have a large capacitor, and this one does not disappoint. The signature radius is 33.9, that's getting toward the larger side of frigate signature radiuses, but again, being a frigate, it is still a very small signature radius overall, and if we combine that with a surprisingly nippy flight velocity of 399 meters per second, you can pretty effectively speed tank with this thing. You're small enough and fast moving enough that you are a very difficult target to hit. Despite all this as well, you've got a scan resolution of 575mm. That means you can actually lock on to targets very, very quickly. You don't need to worry about whether or not something is going to, whether something's going to get in range of you or run away. You can lock on nice and quickly and immediately open fire. You've got a nice small mass, but a slightly larger inertia modifier than some of the other frigates of this size, which means that it's not as nimble as some, it's not as slow as some, it's very much middling as far as its mobility goes in terms of other frigates of a similar size. Anyway, let's look at its trait description. Being a Tech 2 frigate, it only gets bonuses here from Frigate Command, which means it's really easy for any pilot to jump into. If you're flying destroyers, cruisers, battlecruisers, or battleships, all you need to do is put 5 points in Frigate Command, and bam, you are maxed out for flying a Tormentor. Frigate Command bonus here, 7.5% small laser damage per level, and a 10% reduction to the amount of capacitor required to utilise those small lasers. That's obviously a really useful skill in and of itself. Having the amount of capacitor that your lasers are used dropped by half means that you maintain capacitor stability. Plus, that 37.5% increase to small laser damage means that the Tormentor actually packs a surprising amount of punch, as we'll see now. As the Tormentor only has 5 fitting slots, there's obviously not a lot we can really do with it, but this is the fit that I personally use quite a lot, and I really enjoy fitting it this way, and I think this is probably the best way to fit the Tormentor. Now, you'll notice that as I'm going through all of this, I'm using meta level 5 gear. Everything is like longbow, small pulse lasers, etc, etc, etc. If you are a new pilot watching this video because you've just started out in EVE Echoes and you're looking to fit the Tormentor that you've just bought, then you can, of course, ignore the fact that it says longbow, just focus on the small pulse laser bit. Same with any of the other gear. You'll see shield boosters and things like that later. Don't worry about the names, just worry about what it is. If it's a Mark III small pulse laser, obviously that's a good starting point. A Mark V small pulse laser is better, but you do need to be tech level 5. The longbow is a meta level 5 storyline small pulse laser. This is nice and cheap to buy on the market once you've been playing for a decent length of time. Heck, with the ship costing so little and these fittings costing so little, this entire fit here, the ship and everything you see, cost me less than 2 million ISK. Very cheap, very easy to get a hold of. Anyway, I've gone for small pulse lasers because of their optimal range. They've got a surprisingly long optimal range of 6.56 kilometers. The downside is that they do come with a very short and sharp accuracy fall off, 3.38 in this case. That means I'm 100% effective with my weapons at that 6.56 kilometer mark, and I drop to 50% at about the 10 kilometer mark. We actually lose all effectiveness at all at about 14%. So you do really want to hug that 6 to 7 kilometer margin as tightly as possible. Pulse lasers though do a surprising amount of damage. Now obviously this is with it being a longbow small pulse laser, and with some of the skills that I have here trained, gives me a DPS of 61.22. That is a surprising amount of damage, and of course with 2 of these fitted there, that's 122.44 DPS from a Tech 2 frigate. If we look at the low slots then, I've gone for a Smuggler small afterburner. Again, this is the meta level 5 version. If you only have a Mark III, a Mark V or whatever, small afterburner, that will do just nicely. This gives us a flight velocity adjustment of 184%, means we're going to be moving faster without making us a bigger target. A micro warp drive will make you a bigger target, it increases your signature radius when you've got it active, and it takes off the top 25% of your capacitor as well. For a ship like this, an afterburner is more than adequate for our needs, so we've gone for a small afterburner here to allow us to move around the battlefield nice and quickly, and of course that extra speed plus the fact that we're quite a small target means we become very difficult to hit. For tanking here, I've gone for a small shield booster. Of course, a settler small shield booster, could be Mark III, Mark V, whatever you have available. This is just to repair any damage that our shields do take. Now, of course, the Tormentor is slightly larger than some of the other frigates out there, so it does take a few hits here and there. Having a shield booster, I feel, is very important then, as it allows us just to repair that damage quite comfortably mid-combat, keeps us alive for longer. For the third and final of the low slots then, I've gone for a heatsink. These are the weapon upgrade modules for lasers. That is a 5% increase to lasers damage and a 4.01 decrease to the activation time of my lasers. That means they fire faster and they're doing more damage per shot. On top of that as well, you can choose to activate a heatsink and it will apply extra damage here, another damage bonus of 8.03, and it will massively reduce the activation time again, 400% onto the bonus before, so it's about a 16% faster activation time. That is just more damage. Faster firing lasers hitting harder per shot just means more DPS, more damage, more survivability. Now, I really enjoy the Tormentor. It's a little bit limited in PvP, simply because obviously you cannot lock a target down, because you can't fit a Warp Disruptor or a Warp Scrambler, but it does a surprising amount of damage for PvE, and you can actually clear up to Tech Level 7 encounters with this. So you can start off with a Tormentor, nice and early on in EVE Echoes in your career, start piloting one of these, fitting it with Mark 3 gear, upgrade it to Mark 7 gear, Mark 5, Mark 7, and then eventually into storyline gear, like I've got here, the Meta Level 5. As I said, if you want to, you could upgrade that further to Meta Level 8, or even to Dead Space. Ultimately, I wouldn't personally go all the way up to Dead Space on a ship like this. It seems a bit overkill, but again, if you're going for things like Imperial Navy or even the Meta Level 8 storyline stuff, it still keeps this ship nice and cheap, and it's capable of clearing some surprisingly high encounters. Here I am then, coming to the end of a Tech 6 combat encounter. Unfortunately, I couldn't get a Tech 7 to spawn, so we've just jumped into a Tech 6, but you'll see how straightforward this is, and I do assure you that we can do a Tech 7 as well, if you can get one to spawn. Obviously, it's a little bit more hectic, and you need to be a little bit more careful, but there we go. Anyway, with the new wave spawning here, we're about 8 minutes into this encounter now, which I don't think is a bad clear time, and we're going up first of all against that pithy Corax sniper. Obviously, if you're in a frigate, your biggest threat isn't going to be things like cruisers or battle cruisers, it's actually going to be other frigates and destroyers, because they have guns that have fast enough tracking to actually be able to hit you. You might think that the cruisers have bigger guns than the frigates and destroyers, and that's true, they're capable of doing more damage, but they'll have a harder time hitting you, and if they can't hit you, well, they're not actually going to do that damage to you. So we start off with the smaller ships because those are our bigger threat. That Corax sniper obviously is a small destroyer level, so you'll see that I'm just activating my lasers. I've put on the heatsink there to give myself a bit of extra burst of damage, and I can activate the shield booster for a couple of cycles here and there just to repair the damage that my shields have taken. You see, I do take quite a heavy hit, but that shield booster is more than capable of healing all of that hit back up in 1 or 2 cycles. Just make sure that you cycle it for as long as you need, but not any longer. You'll see that the capacitor is quite happy dealing with 1 or 2 cycles here or there from that shield booster, but if you leave the shield booster running unnecessarily, you will absolutely melt through your capacitor and leave yourself with nothing to use when you actually need it, and that's a recipe for death right there. So the next ship to go for now is going to be the Moa. The Moa is actually a surprisingly tanky ship, and you'll see that as I'm looking around this, I can see that there is a Blackbird there in the distance that is healing that Moa. I can see it's hitting with a remote shield repairer, so I am going to change target there to the Blackbird. If you're wondering what I meant, double check back on the footage there, you'll see there's like a little bluish silver line connecting this Blackbird with that Moa, and you'll also notice that the Moa's shields go back up quite quickly after I deal the damage. As such, it's like in any MMO, if you kill the healer first, it's much easier to kill the rest of the party, because you're not worrying about trying to deal damage to someone and someone else is healing up that damage. So we're going to take out that Blackbird quickly first of all. Well, I say quickly, obviously it is a Tech 6 cruiser. It does take a bit of time to get through its shields and its armor, etc. So we're just going to orbit quite comfortably at a range here. See, I'm holding that 7-kilometer orbit quite comfortably. That's more than sufficient. We're right on the edge of optimal range there. I'm doing almost 100% of my effectiveness as DPS. Activating the heatsink there kicks up my damage a little bit higher. As I said, I'm doing more damage per shot with that active, and you'll see that the lasers do cycle a bit faster as well. So we cut through. We're through the Blackbird's shields into its armor now. So we're going to work our way down through that armor tank, towards structure and take care of this one. Again, you'll see that my capacitor is sitting nice and high, very healthy looking capacitor. Shields are taking a little bit of damage here and there, but just 1 or 2 cycles of that shield booster is all we need to keep that topped up. Very, very straightforward, no big worries at all, and it's interesting to see I am being hit with a Nosferatu and a Guidance Disruptor. Obviously, that Guidance Disruptor is no concern at all. Guidance Disruptors mess with your missile systems. This Tormentor obviously is using turrets. We're using lasers, which are a turret system. That's tracking disruptors that mess with those, and you'll find those in Amarr anomalies. So do be aware that if you're in an Amarr anomaly, you may be getting hit with tracking disruptors, which are going to make your life that little bit more difficult, just because you'll struggle to hit a target a bit more. Guidance Disruptors, however, obviously those are designed against missiles. I'm not using missiles, so I don't care that I'm being hit with a Guidance Disruptor. The Nosferatu is slightly annoying because it means I am losing slightly more capacitor than I would like, but it's not causing us any considerable issues. My capacitor is still sitting nice and high there. You can see 66%, still with 96% shield. Everything here is running, and we're going to start to take out that mower now. See, I've gone down to 86% shield. Just taking a little bit of damage here and there. Capacitor still sitting nicely at about the 60% mark, 67. Shields take another slight hit down to 79. Not much at all. Really no threat at all going on here. A few minor knocks here and there. One activation of the shield booster, and you see I'm already back up to 97%, 98%, sorry. It's that simple. Anyway, I am going to skip ahead because there was an interesting bit towards the end of this fight that I want to showcase. We're coming to the end of Wave 2 now, and we're about 16 to 17 minutes into the fight. Again, obviously these mowers do take a little bit of time to go down. They're very tanky ships, and I am in a small frigate which isn't capable of kicking out all that much damage. But there we go, the mower explodes, next wave appears. Now the reason I wanted to showcase this one is because this is quite a big wave, and first of all you'll notice I have now been hit with a Scrambler. That Scrambler is on the Pithy Cormorant, so that is going to be a #1 target for me. I need to activate that shield booster as well, because I'm taking quite a lot of damage. That's the Cormorant interdictor there. So we're going to move in on that target quickly, activate the heat sink so we can burn through that ship as quickly as possible. With that little warp scrambler on me, I am unable to warp away to safety. If things start to get a little bit heated here, I can always jump out to safety. With that scrambler on, I cannot do that, so it's worthwhile taking that out quickly, just in case I do need to flee, heal up, and come back for round 2. As it happens, you'll see that I'm capable here with this Tormentor. I avoid the majority of this damage, so I can actually just stay in this fight and keep going. That Cormorant is about to go down. I've relocked onto a Manticore here because Manticore is a stealth bomber. Again, it's a very small, fast-moving target, and you can see, ouch, I just got hit by something quite powerful. We're going to activate that as shield booster, and we're going to push back up there. That's going to cost us a lot of capacitor to repair, but it is an aggressive repair that we can get nice and quickly back up towards the 100% mark. And you'll see it is chewing capacitor, but you've seen the capacitor does recharge quite quickly here. We can handle that. We're going to take out that Manticore. Then I think the Corax is going to be our next target, because again, a Corax sniper, being a destroyer, it is a threat to us. So we're going to work on that one next. There it is. So we lock on and we set our orbit, the lasers start shooting, the shield booster is still going, it's bringing our shield up quite nicely, capacitor is getting a little bit low now, we're at about 35-36%, but again, as long as we're still okay, we're not in any problem. You stay calm in a situation like this, assess what your ship can do, and if you know the ship well enough, you'll understand that actually, yes, it's capable of doing this, I don't need to panic. Stay calm and just cycle the modules that you need to cycle. And here we go. That Corax is now down into hull. It's got a very aggressive shield booster on it. So we're going to deal with that, get rid of that ship, and then move on to the onto the Caracal here. I get a feeling that that Caracal is what is causing the big damage, especially since it's a Navy issue. They do have quite a high damage output, especially if they're fit with rapid missile launchers, which are very dangerous against frigates and destroyers. So that's going to be our next target, and we move on. And you'll see the capacitor. Okay, capacitors went down a little bit low. We hit about 30%, but now we're back up to 40%. I can then start activating that shield booster again to repair some damage when I need to. I'm actually just going to let things go down a little bit further here on the shields, just to showcase how powerful that booster is per cycle. So we're down to 30% here on the shields. We're going to get a warning on the next hit. There it is, low shield warning, 29%. 13%, let's activate that shield booster, and we're back up to 30%, 32% on one cycle, 21%, 40%, so you see we're getting a good 19-20% out of each cycle. It's a nice heavy shield boost there, more than capable of dealing with that. Now, activating the heatsink there has pushed our capacitor down a little bit, but again, it's not a huge worry. 32%, we're still above the 25% mark. If you're above 25%, you still have a good aggressive capacitor going. Obviously, the closer you are to 25% in either way, the faster your maximum recharge rate. If you're not sure what I mean there, I have done a video on how capacitor works that you can check out there. Anyway folks, obviously this is just going to go on now. It's going to take a bit of time for me to cut through the shields, armour and the structure of these three cruisers. The whole thing takes me about 25 minutes from start to finish to kill everything. Actually, I think it's about 28 minutes, I do lie, about 28 minutes from start to finish. Which for a Tech 2 frigate, that's not bad at all. Sure, this isn't the fastest ship to clear Tech 7 anomalies, but it's definitely one of the cheapest. Very cheap ship. As I said, literally this is less than 2 million ISK, this entire ship, and fit cost me, and I'm capable of comfortably doing Tech 6 anomalies. Tech 7 are a bit of a strain, but they are possible. You just need to be very careful. Tech 7, certainly once you start hitting the Imperial Navy or the Meta level 8 gear, become a lot easier, but even here at the Meta level 5 gear, not a problem at all. Anyway folks, that about wraps up everything I wanted to say here about the Tormentor. Fun little video for you all, I do hope you've enjoyed it. I really like flying these cheap little frigates and just pushing them to their limits. So do stay tuned, we'll have a few more of that. I might even see if I can do like a PvP montage of me getting blown up in those frigates or something, just to showcase them at their absolute limits. Let me know how you enjoy these ships. I would be very interested to know if anyone else actually bothers flying those Tech 2 frigates once they've hit Tech 4 or higher. I really enjoy them. Let me know if you do too. Otherwise, folks, thanks for watching right the way to the end. Happy sailing, and see you in New Eden!